In 2001, Prince apparently gained the right back to a good deal of his Warner Brothers catalog under his own name, and also was able to record under the name of Prince. And the first time he did that was with an album that I had no clue was coming out, and it was called The Rainbow Children. It came out in 2001, and it's right here. Let me take a closer look at that album. The album itself has a picture of Prince on it, looking very grim. This is a very good album, very much influenced by his jazz side. Miles Davis, John Coltrane. There's a strong, gurgling, deep funk in that, with a lot of improvisation. And the album had a sticker, a yellow sticker on the plastic that said, "The controversial new album by Prince." Now, at the time, I didn't know what the controversial element was, but years later I realized that this album had to do with his conversion to the Watchtower Society, better known as the Jehovah's Witnesses. Also, the album has a lot to do with his understanding of his heritage, his Afrocentricity. It's a very deep album that I really should be getting back into. Musicology, which is his next album from 2004. I've been listening to that album a lot lately. Musicology is an album that starts out with a great James Brown funk number where Prince is talking about artist rights and what funk music did in the past. And there's another song on here, kind of a Minneapolis style groove that could have actually worked in the early 80s, called "What Do You Want Me to Do?" He also does a very strong anti-racial profiling song called "Cinnamon Girl" on here too. It's a wonderfully catchy pop rocker that talks about a young girl who's racially profiled for her Muslim heritage. And he also has another Minneapolis sounding song on there called "Illusion, Coma, Pimp, and Circumstance." That song reminds me of J-Lo's song "Play," which I feel also had a strong Prince influence as well. This next album, this is a big deal. His first #1, I believe, since the 80s. 3121. Came out 2 years after Musicology. Featured basically a modern-day Kiss called "Black Sweat." It sounded like a Pharrell Williams production. 3121 is a great gurgling funk song, too. And he also did a great synth rocker on there called "Fury." That's a wonderful album. The next one is called "Planet Earth." It has a holographic cover. Prince, symbol, Prince, symbol. But when I got it, unfortunately, it had no titles on the back of the album at all or anywhere inside it. I actually had to get these off the internet. It's a more rock-oriented album overall. I got to get back into it a little bit. And my favorite song I remember on there is with Candy Dulfer, and it's called "Chelsea Rogers." Another great James Brown kind of funk jam. This album was only sold at Target, and it was a threesome album. It contained another Prince protege, Bria Valente. Not a bad album. Lotus Flower, which is a very Santana-like jazz fusion experience, and Minneapolis sound. I love this album. Very much like a remake of the 1999 era sound. Old School Company being my favorite. Very strong synth funk. And he continued on that with this next album, 2010, which came out that year. And it was his last album for 5 years until he re-emerged with Plectrum Electrum, with Third Eyed Girl, and Artificial Age, which we've already discussed. I love that cover. This is a thin album. It was actually only put on the cover of a British magazine called the Daily Mail. I don't think it was ever officially released here. I think I got it from Bull Moose because they bought a bunch of Daily Mail copies and just sold us off the album. I'm not sure. But this is a great Minneapolis-sounding album. Very much in the classic early 80s sound. Act of God and Laveau are big-time jams that I love. And it has a song that begins it called "Compassion." This album has a lot of very humanitarian-themed lyrics. There's no profanity on it or anything, for those of you who are worried about that. And Prince also had another release, which I didn't include here, because it was an instrumental album, and I wanted to focus on him playing, writing, producing, and singing. And that album was called News. It's a jazz fusion kind of record, instrumental record, and I don't have it with me. But these are the basic Prince vocal records of the 2000s before his 2014 comeback, which would be his last. So thank you for enjoying my reboots of my Prince collection, and I'll see you next time with something else.